Hola amigos, bien o no, y saludos desde Medellín. Hoy, en este momento, está lloviendo mucho aquí en Medellín y por supuesto es octubre. En este tiempo del otoño, claro, es el clima aquí y también en Inglaterra. Entonces, ese es un poco el tema de hoy, pero especialmente yo voy a compartir con otra leyendo por desde este libro, uno de mis favoritos, que hablar con el diferencia entre el otoño en Inglaterra, especialmente para describir la otoño muy especial en Estados Unidos. So ese es el tema de hoy. So, hello again from Medellin. Well, it's October and unsurprisingly, it's raining here, which leads me to think, or leads me to remember the fact that in England as well, at this time of year, we're going into the autumn, or otoño, where we get lots more rain and it's generally cold, damp and not very pleasant. But the interesting thing, why I'm going to share you this reading from one of my favourite books, Alistair Cooke, perhaps you know, was a very famous English journalist who lived for most of his life in New York, sending back dispatches to the BBC in London about what was happening in America. And in this case, I'm going to share with you one of his broadcasts he made back in 1949, there we are, 21st of October 1949, where he talks about the fall of New England, or as we know, the autumn in New England in the USA, and how it's different to the autumn you get in Europe. So I'm just going to read you that because his writing is really exceptional. So here we go. In most temperate countries, the strong pigments that have been hidden from view in the greens of summer never do come out because the autumn brings in rain and mists and threatening grey skies. The whole trick of the New England fall is nothing more complicated than that of a photographic negative handled by a superior developer. In the autumn, the countrymen tell us, the sap is blocked from the leaf by a new growth of hard cells at the base of the twig, so the greens fade. Now all you need is an October of brilliant light and warmth to develop out yellows and the reds. The only other qualification is a lack of rain. On the rich and rainy soils like those of England, the leaves stay green too late till the frost kills them. New England, on the contrary, has many causes to lament its rather poor soils, but it never regrets them in the fall, for their very lack of nitrogen stimulates a great range of yellows and golds, and the acid in the leaves is what burns them scarlet. The fall then is nothing more than the thorough burning out of what is poor in the soil and what is bitter in the leaf. It is, says Donald Colecross Beatty, essentially death that causes all the brave show. But it is a fierce and productive death. I once went north from New York City at the very beginning of the fall to meet the peak of it, wherever it might be, between Maine and southern Connecticut. The first signal of the glory to come is a bare tree, which is never bare until the fall is ready to ripen. It is the butternut tree, and it sheds everything just as the bushes and berries are beginning to trickle out their purple. But the green edge of the parkway on which I was driving, little piles of brown leaves, already dead, lay at the foot of hickory trees. The ferns were dry, the bracken and blueberry bushes were wine dark, the sumac a throbbing vermilion. Everywhere there was the smell of burning wood, letting off violet wisps of smoke to smear the cloudless sky, like trickles of milk on window panes. At this point, I wanted to take off my glasses, which a notation on my driving licence forbids. This is another thing about the fall. The sparkling clarity of the light gives to short-sighted people the constant sense that their eyesight has marvellously improved and that they are seeing fences, barns, steeples and billboards in the sharp outline they probably have for other people all the time. I drove up and over the hills across from New York State into Connecticut, past roadside stands piled high with jugs of cider and pyramids of pumpkins. And then I started to follow a river whose banks were black with stands of evergreen. By now, a green field was just another daub on the crowded palette of the landscape. We were still far from the fall's peak. It was still the small, treeless things that were trying to be splendid. The briar and bushes and vines were sparkling. I do not know them well enough to single out their separate charms, but it is an annual joy to see brush, which most of the time is a mesh of old wire, suddenly disclose a jewel of a flower. Pokeweed and pitch pine cone and unpretentious things like partridge berry and jack in the pulpit. All of them have a special shining berry, a bursting husk, a momentary bloom. I got out of the car and wallowed in the silence and the singing colour and the balmy heat. At the rim of my tyre I noticed that the smooth white cement of the highway had cracked under the tension of a cranberry vine. And through this crack and edging into the highway, wild cranberries grew. I looked ahead at the engineered boulevard of the highway, pouring like two ribbons of toothpaste to the horizon, quite heedless of its defeat by the concentrated violence of a tiny and delicate vine that just about put industrial know-how in its proper place. And I climbed back and went on, warming to the excitement of what was to come. And now the trees took over. After another 20 miles, the evergreens came in thick and fast. Even a pine looked like a new invention seen in its inkiness against a flaming maple. Now I was surrounded by two other properties that make the New England fall unique. First, and above all, the maple, with its bursting sugar which blazes into scarlet. And then the oaks. An Englishman is surprised to wonder about many slender trees and hear them called oaks. The fat old oak tree of England, with its legs planted solidly on lush damp ground, is a rare sight. But New England has a teeming variety of oaks, and their value as a spectacle is that in the fall they entirely revise your ideas about the infinite range of colour between gold and lemon. And beside this perpetual shower of scarlet and lemon and gold, the white birches slid by like slivers of mercury. And rising from the foam of every valley, slim as thermometers, were the white spires of colonial churches, keeping count of the general fever. I had hit the peak, and the state of our language being what it is, in my hands at least, there is no more point in going on about it in prose. So there we go. Alistair Cooke's marvellous account of the fall in New England from what is nearly 80 years ago. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Déjame saber en los comentarios, como siempre. But for now, from Medellin, it's Cheerio.